So you all know how I did that Max Payne video a while ago, right? I mean, if you don't, you should go and watch it. I've been giving it a replay throughout the course of this video, though, and I'm not sucking at it as much as I was. Maybe it's because I've gotten used to the general difficulty curve of the game, or maybe it's because I stopped using the godforsaken shotguns, but it's actually pretty fun. No, get out of here. This ain't your video. Whatever, this is supposed to be a Red Faction video, so I'm gonna go play that now. I'm just gonna jump right in here. There's not a ton of background to go through, at least not important background, that is. This game was made by Volition, and if you know anything about them, you know they haven't exactly made anything good in a long time. Wait a minute, just hold for a moment. What? I have to do the training? Why? Okay, fine. I'll do the training then. Normally I wouldn't be doing a training mode like this, but in this game there's a couple things I'd like to actually point out here. We're being bossed by this fellow over the comms who just openly talks about how the miners are going to revolt. Also, get used to being called a miner. Everybody in this game does it, including the guards, which sounds let's just say it sounds a little disheartening.
Try it, miner.
This, however, does bring up some interesting questions. First off, who the hell are you? I know I'm supposed to be working with you, but do you work in a different department or something? Secondly, is this line secure? Are we safe to openly talk about this? Wouldn't Altor have someone monitoring the comms at all times to crack down on crap like this? I can imagine someone in the comms office sitting there listening to us being like, yeah, that sounds like work banter to me. Regardless, this tutorial teaches you the bare bones essentials like walking and crouching, stuff that if you've never played a video game before you would need to learn. There's also this game's main claim to fame, which is the Geomod destruction engine. You can destroy certain pieces of the environment here and there, and it's only used at a handful of places in the entire game, which is actually kind of unfortunate, because it is pretty cool when it is utilized. Anyways, let's get into the real game now. Our lead here is Parker, a miner who has joined up on Altar to go to Mars to mine for precious resources. In reality, the work conditions are shit, and there's healthy doses of plague floating around, which is quite bad. The security guys are also giant dicks. Apparently someone named Eos is planning on gathering a bunch of miners and starting a revolution, which sounds like a good plan to me. We don't necessarily show any interest in joining up with the Red Faction, but it seems that we're gonna have to
Just
anyway.
Let me go, or else. You threatening me? Yeah, well, threaten this.
So we just gotta jump onto the whole revolution thing here. We pick up this dead guard's baton and start swinging. Get a good look at this baton because you're never gonna see it again. That's because we can also get a pistol from the second guard here, which is fine. It's inaccurate as hell and can be silenced for stealth purposes, and you will need to use stealth occasionally. Its damage ranges wildly from being able to take down a guy in one headshot to needing 4 or 5 shots, but since the thing is so inaccurate, it's hard to do anything from medium or long range. So the strategy just becomes run up at a guy and spam him with the pistol to kill him, all the while trading damage, which isn't really a problem early on at least, since most of these guards actually drop health or armor pickups. The armor in this game takes the form of a miner and virus suit, which if damaged up means that you take damage outside. However, this has literally never happened to me a single time, so we're not going to talk about it. You can also pick up these remote detonation bomb things, which aren't really useful for combat, but they can be used to destroy certain parts of this level, which can be helpful in some circumstances. We can also pick up the game's rocket launcher somewhere here. That's right, no shotgun, straight to rocket launcher, good old-fashioned Duke 3D rules here. It's fine enough. It's more useful for combat than the remote bombs are by a mile, though. So I'm going through these surprisingly non-linear mines, and we get contacted by Eos. Told you she was going to be important. She doesn't say much for now, though. We can also get contacted by some dude named Hendrix, who is effectively Altar's IT guy. He's an absolute bro for basically the entire game. He tells us to huff it over to the shuttle bay if we want to escape. To do so, we have to go through the barracks first. This is where we can get our hands on the game's shotgun, and it actually isn't bad. It's like a reverse Half-Life 1 shotgun, with the primary fire being the double-barrel blast and the secondary fire being the spammy mode, which is fully automatic in this game. We can also get the flamethrower here, which is decent enough, even though I basically never use it. Oh, and the riot shield too, which is laughably useless. After we cover a path through the barracks, we finally reach the hangar with the shuttle where we promptly miss our flight.
Maybe being slow isn't such a bad thing. Hold it, miner.
Yeah, no kidding. Also, you seem pretty chill after seeing a bunch of your comrades in arms get shot out of the fucking sky. Somewhere around this section of the game we can get our hands on the assault rifle, which is fine enough. The primary fire is a burst of 3 rounds, which is nice and automatic, and the secondary is normal fully automatic. It only holds 42 rounds for some goddamn reason, though, which is kind of weird. Hendrix says that we have to go back into the mines to get back to the Red Faction base, so we do that next. While going down the elevator here, we can find ourselves a sniper rifle and a secret, which is actually nice and satisfying. Before we can actually get to the Red Faction base, we need to go through this geothermal plant and sabotage a bunch of systems. The lava control, the water reclamation, the turbines, and the main controls. We have to do the first 4 before we can do the 5th one, and once we do said 5th objective, the place is going to start to get blown to shit, so we have to escape. Conveniently, someone has left a nice mini-sub out here at the submarine dock for us to take. The sub-controls are kinda jank and weird at times, but it works fine enough. The hitbox also must be all kinds of messed up considering the fact that your entire screen can get hit by a torpedo that looks like it would pass you. At the very least, you can still strafe if you need to, which is nice. Also, the music in this game absolutely fucking slaps. After we're done at the submarine here, we have to go to a research base to find someone named Griffin. Griffin? How do you pronounce that? Who is supposed to know more about the plague. Unfortunately, to find him, we need to do a stealth section. So before we can enter the research center, we have to give up our weapons and put on a suit so we won't get spotted. And for a little while, the game becomes a pseudo-stealth game. Well, it's not really stealth, you just kind of wander around with your gun holster trying to stay away from enemies in an attempt to find this Griffin guy. I'm also convinced you can't actually beat this section fully in stealth. To get through to the end, you have to pass an enemy who will recognize you and force this section into combat. And all you have is the mediocre silenced pistol from before. There are mechanics like hiding bodies and the aforementioned holstering weapons, but they don't really help the fact that the game is at its best when it's a shooter. So after it gets spotted, I whip out my piece and I start blasting. The pistol's being shit is, really detrimental to the section considering it's the only thing I've got. It can take like 4 or 5, probably even 6 or 7 hits some of the time to kill someone with this thing. Oh yeah, and also I'm only playing on the medium skill, but enemies take like 10 shots to go down. Also, you're gonna see why I'm on play on the medium skill, because it can get real BS later on. After taking the elevator down, you holster your weapon and you can go back to being in stealth, which I end up doing for the final floor. So I go in, right? I'm playing all stealthy, go into the camera room and I take out the guy there, which means that the camera should be out, right? Nope. I whacked a guy in front of the camera and he gets spotted immediately, so much for that idea. Good thing Griffin is on this floor since this is really starting to drag itself out here. Once we reach Griffin, we persuade him into coming along with us. After some more guard popping, we can finally get our Enviro suit and our weapons back. However, now we have to do an escort mission. For what this section is, it's fine enough. Griffin mainly hangs back while we take care of the bad guys, which is a good design decision. Good job, Volition. More importantly, though, we can get our hands on the SMG, which might be a standard MP5K style thing, but when you reload it, you can notice that it has a magazine and receiver of an assault rifle bolted onto the bottom. Which means that you can switch between having a fast and lightweight SMG or a heavy-hitting rifle, which is actually pretty unique, even if the actual assault rifle will do the whole, being an assault rifle thing better in the end. We can also pick up the grenades, which are effectively a standard for the remote charges that we had before. So we're going through this section, killing dudes in the tunnels when we reach the attack chopper, and this thing absolutely rules. It controls really nicely and has miniguns and missiles. You go through this bizarre helicopter shooting range that Altor just has for some reason too, which is kind of cool. Once we land around the Red Faction base, we end up coming across an Altor suppression combat. It's pretty obvious what you have to do to take it down. It's a good old-fashioned Half-Life blast pit situation. You have to open this door to the big-ass furnace and push it in there with a giant fan. The problem is the execution. The combat's AI just isn't there. I tried for like 20 minutes to get the thing to go down there, but it just wouldn't move. Eventually it moves into the conveyor belt and I turn the damn thing into scrap metal. After that we part ways with Griffin since we can't go with him to the Red Faction base. EO sends us to a science base next to find a guy named Kapik who quickly becomes the main antagonist of the game from here on out. To actually get to the science base we need to crawl into this furnace so that we destroy the combat and to get there. And once we do... yeah, it's gonna be back to stealth for a while. To get far, you have to get this lab code over here at the very beginning. The game gives you the illusion of a choice by being able to solve this problem with violence, like I would have preferred, since you can just ignore the lab code this time and go around through a good chunk of the labs in combat, although I did get soft-locked around this point, so I had to go back and grab said lab code. So I kind of stumble my way through the lab, and another scientist tells us to go and grab some kind of test sample, which we go and do. I'm able to get surprisingly far in stealth since I can just zip past these guards because of how big this room is. Eventually, I do end up hitting a roadblock in the form of this room that I have to go through stuffed with guards, so I unholster my gun and I start blasting. After I cut through some more corporate goons, I finally get to the lab where Kapik is. He says some ambiguously evil shit, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, so we try to shoot him, but he has the plot on his side, or nanotech, whichever one you prefer to go with. After that, he just kind of Chad floats away, and we end up having to go back into the mine to find him. Also, there's just mutants now, which are a thing, I guess. I get good use out of the flamethrower here since I actually get some ammo for it too, which is nice. Eventually, we make it to Kapik's zoo, where he keeps a bunch of his failed experiments because, he's laughably evil. It turns out that he's also been experimenting on miners too, which is evil. Did I mention that he's evil? I think he's evil. He might be the bad guy, actually. To actually get to Kapik, we need to get over to this Jeep and drive over. The Jeep, it doesn't handle well at all. The vehicle controls work when you're on non-ground vehicles, but the Jeep controls they're just bad, okay? There's no other way of going around that. You can't turn with the A and D key, so it kind of reminds me of the first Borderlands game, which is not a good thing. There's also no form of onboard weapons to speak of, except for this machine gun that we actually have to get into the truck to use manually, which I suppose is realistic, but if you're looking for a realistic game, this definitely isn't it. After we clear a path through the caves, we reach Kapik's secret lab, and we have to kill a small army of private security goons before we can find the man himself. Once we finally catch up with him, the boss fight begins. His first phase is him under his stupid nanotech shield, which can be destroyed by just being shot at, which begs the question why we just shoot at him more when he was floating away. Oh, it's because we had the pistol, nothing sucks. Okay, never mind. His main and only attack are these homing purple balls that are able to kill me in 2 shots because I entered the boss arena with a little over half health, so he kills me an embarrassing number of times. When he finally goes down, Eos is there to prevent us from wasting his ass, because she believes that he has the cure to the plague, which he does, but he refuses to spill it, as he probably would. I don't know what Eos was expecting. Once he bites it, the base goes into self-destruct mode, and Eos stays behind to find the files on the plague. She tells us that we need to get to a satellite array to send a distress signal to the Earth Defense Force. Once we get back out to the surface, we get into a jeep, and the driver gives us the disc to send the signal that we need to send out. And also, there's just mercenaries now, which could prove to be a problem soon. Wait, no, that's not right. Okay, yeah, that's more like it. Apparently Ultor decided that the situation was way beyond Fubor and decided to call on the cavalry. The mercs won't be a problem for a little while, but oh boy, when they do become a problem. Let's just say you're going to wish the Ultor security guys were back. To actually get to the satellite, we need to do a 2001 turret section, which is about as mediocre as a turret section can be. This came out before Infinity Ward would come along and perfect the art of clicking on bad guys in the desert. The way we actually get to the comm station is by going through some lovely overgrown caverns, which are filled with mutants, because of course they are. After we clear a path through the caverns, all we have to do is ride the Skyline car to the comm station. Once we get inside, we kill a couple of Ultra security goons, then the mercs. They're about as tanky as the rest of the grunts, but these clowns have way better gear, and the first two will give you the precision rifle, which soon becomes the best weapon in the game. It fires fast, does good damage, and has a scope for long-range engagements. The mercs who have these are numerous going forward, which makes it pretty hard to run out of ammo for the thing. This is also where we learn that the mercs are capping everyone in the facility. Yep, I'm just going to mark that down as the 60th thing that this game has in common with Half-Life. Listen, alright, having an enemy faction that comes in to kill everyone in the story is fine, but the HECU grunts are just way cooler. After we arrive at the station proper, we fight our way through to send the signal out, and we get jumped by some more mercs, so we have to fight our way down the tower in an admittedly pretty cool combat sequence. Our next objective is to get to an Ultor-run space station, but to do so we have to take out Ultor's missile defense system. So we take the airlock out and we find ourselves a rail driver. The rail driver is probably the best and worst feature of this game. It's a one-hit kill railgun that can beam people through walls and is very, very useful. So what's the issue? Well, the enemies have it too, with no downsides. I can't even count how many times I died because some half-witted merc shot me through a wall with the goddamn thing. I'd be complaining more, but the thing is just as overpowered for us too, so it's not really that big of a deal. In the meantime, we can also get our hands on a nice belt-fed machine gun, which is lovely. Primary fire is automatic, secondary fire is also automatic, but slower this time and more accurate. After going through some more facilities, we can come across a subway tunnel, and yes, the trains are active and did indeed kill me once. So we go through and melt a bunch of dudes with our nice machine gun and occasionally sniping at them through walls with the rail driver. At the first station, we actually have to take the tram down to the next station, and you might think you'd have the opportunity to take a breather, but no, you get ambushed by some more mercs on another tram next to yours, and one of them has the rail driver and they can kill me through the wall. Oh yeah, also Eos is back. I honestly can't remember when she got back, but she did. Apparently she did find the vaccine to the plague, and she's got a bunch of people working to produce it. But we also have to disable the satellite network thing from the space station. I honestly tune out of the story here because it's kind of awful, but whatever. I mean, I was already planning on going there anyway, so, you know, just keep rushing me, I guess. Thanks for reiterating literally everything that I just talked about doing. After we get to the defense system control room, we shut it down and then accidentally trigger a self-destruct sequence, so we hop back into tram and just narrowly escape the blast.
Parker, are you still there? Stop standing around and get going.
Shut up for a goddamn second. I just survived a train crash, man. Give me a second. We have to reach the space station via shuttle, which is going to take off in 10 minutes. To actually reach the shuttle, we need to drive this APC, which controls like shit, like most of the other ground vehicles in this game. Once we get to the shuttle, we sneak aboard right before it takes off. Of course this game had to go to space. I could use a hacky Tim Curry Red Alert clip here, but instead I'm just going to stick with the Star Wars reference in the title of this section. Our primary target is just to blow the damn piece of shit out of the sky, and we have to do that by, you know, destroying all the systems and then going around and killing everybody. It's honestly kind of a boring section. The first thing we need to go do is destroy these server-looking things that are controlling something. While we're in the middle of doing that, the Red Faction base gets overrun by mercs, and Eos is presumed to be captured along with many of the other rebels.
Hendrix! Base overrun! Fighting retreat! Falling apart!
The defense system is down.
This place is split up between 3 levels. The middle floors are the cargo bays where we came in, as well as the reactor, which will be important in a sec. The top floor is stuffed with mercs and has more office and computer central rooms, like the security room with all these servers in it. The bottom level is reserved for more utilitarian things like escape pods and barracks. Once we destroy all the servers, we can take the entire station down for good, but to do that we need to go destroy the reactor. To do that, we need to hit 2 switches, one of which is hidden so well that I ended up dropping the game because I thought the game was broken. Okay, let me explain. You see, there's one switch on the top layer of the reactor room, which is easy enough to find, but then there's one on the bottom that's hidden, at least kinda hidden, so I could not for the life of me find it on my first playthrough, so I just assumed the game was broken and gave up on it. But this time I actually managed to find it after scouring the room for 2 minutes and looking up a walkthrough. Once you flip them both, you have a minute to get to the escape pod on the bottom level of the ship. Once we do so, we miraculously escape and land back on the surface of Mars for the final stretch of the game.
The mercs have orders to evacuate the base and destroy the entire mining complex.
Damn, I should have used that one for the previous section. That would have been a better Star Trek name. Once we climb our way out of the pod, we link up with a small group of miners and begin to carve a path through these mercs to get to the base. Eventually, all of the miners die except for us, and we're left on our own, of course. This section ain't all bad, actually. You've got all the weapons, it's just you versus a horde of every single merc the game could throw at you, and apparently the Red Faction base did get virtually wiped out. The whole operation was Colonel Masako's idea, since she wanted payback for all the pain the miners had caused her. I mean, the rest of the Red Faction hasn't done much. I'm just gonna save you another like 10 minutes of me walking through these tunnels and gunning down bad men and skip to when we actually get captured. As expected, we get all of our guns taken and we get thrown inside of a cell in the merc base. Eventually, we get busted out by another Red Faction member and the game throws us back into the fray once more. After clearing out a small army of mercenaries, we can find a bunch of Red Faction members holed up in the Merc Command Center. Also, Pendrix is there for some reason. You can bump into him in an earlier chapter of the game during the first stealth section, but I just wanted to get past that section as fast as possible, so I missed it. Hendrix needs us to get him to the generator room to get the power back on so we can access the mainframe and so we can do some early 2000s Hackerman shit. Then we can escort him out of the control room and he can open things up for us, and then he just dies, you know. And he does die nobly. Off screen. Then we get contacted by Colonel Masako herself, who just starts talking shit to us for the rest of the game until we kill her. This is where the game really starts to drag. We've already done all this crap about 1,000 times at this point, and I feel like the AIM could have just, ended an hour ago, but whatever. We get our hands on another attack chopper here, which will carry me to the end of the game, basically. I'm gonna do another skip here. You won't be missing out on much, just me flying around in the chopper. And once we encounter Colonel Masako, we can engage in the worst boss fight in the history of boss fights to ever boss fight. Say that 10 times fast. I walk into the room with about 40 health, which is already a bad start. She starts off on a chopper that doesn't actually have any kind of damage feedback to make you, think you're doing the right thing, you know? Once the thing just magically explodes, she comes out and inexplicably has that same nanotech shit that Kapik did, but she also has a hit-scan rifle that's able to kill me in like one hit because my health was so goddamn low. I died like 24 times during this boss fight because of that shit. And also, she doesn't get a special cutscene either, she just dies. Once she dies, we have to go upstairs and defuse the bomb. The way we defuse the bomb is also fucking ridiculous. We just walk up to it and play Dance Dance Revolution until the fucking thing turns off. Once we shut the thing down, the EDF is there to save the day, and then we roll credits. Overall, this game is fine. If you want a weird niche version of Half-Life with some destructible walls, then I guess this is your game. I'm sure it was pretty impressive by 2001 standards, but the destructible environments have been done better by now, even by other games in this series. Speaking of the rest of the series, they're fine enough as long as you exclude the sequel, and Armageddon, I guess. I might do a video on Gorilla, though. That one's alright. If you are interested in this game, I'd still recommend it. It can start to drag around the halfway point, though, so be warned. Anyways, next time I'll be back to playing obscure boomer shooters.